It's nice to be taken away to a different place, a place that's a little bit different, a different time, where there weren't the same worries that we have today. And I think we got exactly that. It's a little bit of escapist fantasy that we're talking about today on For the Kids, PBS Kids podcast, when we go all the way back to the I should have looked up how to pronounce this, the Qing dynasty, Qing. I apologize on all of the Chinese pronunciations for the remainder of this podcast, because of course you know me, Will Young. I am white, and my co-host Lucas Mancini, also white.
That's right. I am very much a white person, and let me tell you something, Will. It's so nice to go back to a time where your biggest problem wasn't the coronavirus; it was invasion by the Huns, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Although you can also do that in Disney's Mulan.
That's true.
You can relive what that. Must have been.
I don't even know
like.
if this is I do not know a lot about Chinese feudalism. I gotta say, we gotta get this out of the way up top. I don't even know if the Huns were a real concern in Sagwa's time. I cannot speak to the historical accuracy of Sagwa. I have lots of questions, as we're gonna get into. But yeah, that's basically a warning that you should put on the start of this episode, is that I don't know about you, Will, but I haven't been really studying up on my Chinese history. It's basically Sagwa and Mulan. That's about it.
There's that movie Hero with that's a really good movie.
There's the movie Hero, Journey to the West.
Mm-hmm.
I know about that.
Kung Fu Hustle, but that's not really history.
No. I would not say that Kung Fu Hustle is an accurate portrayal of really anything. It's a great movie, but yeah. So basically, we're gonna take Sagwa as it is. I was a little nervous about this one, Will. Not gonna lie. We've kind of talked before about one of these days, even though it's not a PBS show, we're gonna take a deep dive into a little show called Yvonne of the Yukon. For our American listeners, Canadian television cartoon, which is quite possibly, this is all just from memory, the most problematic television show ever made. But until then, I felt like Sagwa might be a practice round. And I guess you'll have to listen to the rest of this episode to see if my estimation was true.
I'll be interested to have that conversation, especially in light of Yvonne of the Yukon, our most threatened episode.
Yeah, if the problematic children's show scale, let's say, Arthur, I would go as far as to say, might be the least problematic, or, something absurdist like Teletubbies, maybe.
Sure.
And then on the other end of that scale, the pinnacle of primality is, if that's not even a word, is Yvonne of the Yukon.
Yeah, it's pretty low down there, and we'll get to it someday.
Yeah, where on that scale though does Sagwa fall? Because that's what we're talking about this week.
Well, something I'd like to put up top is that I wonder if any of our patrons who are listening to this, by the way, welcome to all of the new patrons who will be experiencing this as their first episode for the kids. If you have any knowledge about this time period in China or Chinese history or culture, we welcome your emails and Discord messages. I'd really love to know a bit more. I have a friend who's more into Chinese history, and I imagine he might have a thing or two to say.
No, it's true. I didn't really think about it. I kind of forgot about this episode. I wish I did some more reading in advance, because it's a big kind of cultural blind spot for me. China's this monolithic presence in our world today, and I know so little about its history past a certain age. So I welcome all resources our dear listeners have. But until then, I'm going to be learning about it from these three kooky cats, Will. That's where I'm getting my Chinese history from, is Sagwa and the gang.
Well, what I can tell you is not the history of China, the land, but I can tell you the history of the television show Sagwa, the Chinese Siamese cat, which, starting off on a good note, was originated by an Asian author. So,
okay.
Thumbs up so far.
Chinese?
You... I will say Asian as
Okay.
You're going to hear me say...
They could be in, India or Iran, but know...
You're going to hear me say Asian a lot because I want to be careful to make sure that I don't misrepresent anybody's specific country of origin. So
for sure.
It appears that Amy Tan is Chinese. So
Okay.
I will say that.
Hey, it makes sense. Write about what you know.
So yeah, so Lucas, Sagwa was your choice. What's kind of your relationship with this show?
So Sagwa, I mean, one of the reasons I picked Sagwa was every time we have to pick a new show to talk about on For the Kids, it's usually me doing a mad dash, Googling PBS kids shows and looking at the Google autofill and seeing which one strikes my eye. And I had seen Sagwa pop up in that before, and I kind of remembered that for later. I was like, okay, put that in the back of my head for when the time is right. And I was scrolling through TikTok, a Chinese app, Will. So a little bit of, I was scrolling through TikTok, and TikTok, I saw this TikTok where it was like, I'm going to show you a memory that you forgot you had. And it just showed
unlocking a memory.
Yes, exactly. And it was showing all these children's TV shows that don't get a lot of play. You get your Mona the Vampires, your Something About Mimi's, that kind of, that kind of tier of show. And included in it was Sagwa. And I was like, we should talk about Sagwa. I feel like Sagwa was on right before Arthur or right after Arthur. Like, I think Sagwa was one of those shows that I didn't like it at the time when I was a kid, but it was right before a show I liked. And so I've ended up watching a lot of Sagwa as a child, waiting for the show. It's the same reason I would have watched, something like Zatch Bell back in the day because I wanted to watch Pokemon or something like that where Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Was before Pokemon, Zatch Bell was after Pokemon, and so I've seen more Yu-Gi-Oh! And Zatch Bell not because I liked the shows so much, but because Pokemon was the centerpiece. So I think Sagwa was like that with some other PBS show that it was all about.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in with other PBS shows before, because my biggest memory of Sagwa is the theme song. I remember hearing the theme song. It must have been on the tail end of another PBS kids show that I was watching. I would always watch the theme song because it's very pleasant, as we'll talk about, and then that would be it. I never really ever watched the show. So this was an interesting opportunity to see exactly what a typical episode of it looked like. And we started kind of at the beginning because this was like, I was looking through the episode guide and it's like, there's no celebrity voices that I could find. There was no this is the weird, concept episode. So just like, well, might as well start at the beginning and just kind of see what this is about.
And I'm glad we did, Will, because how else would I know how Sagwa got her colors?
Exactly. The title of the episode, they lay it all right out for you. And we do indeed find out. And we'll be talking about that very soon.
There's some crazy implications about how Sagwa got her colors. Oh, geez.
I don't know if I know the implications. I'm really interested to hear you talk about this. So stay tuned, everybody. So for now, Sagwa the Chinese Siamese Cat. Yes, Chinese-American author Amy Tan wrote a children's book called Sagwa the Chinese Siamese Cat. And Amy Tan is an author. She's a very prolific author. The only book of hers that I'm familiar with is The Joy Luck Club, because I know that was turned into a movie.
Yeah, I have not seen The Joy Luck Club. Is that good?
I've never seen it. I just remember it's one of those movies where when you're younger you hear the title and it kind of doesn't make sense to you, like The Cider House Rules. And I'm like,
that's a good example.
The Joy Luck Club. Like, all right, whatever that means. But it was a movie at one point, and she continues to write to this day. But this is one of her forays into children's books, and so that was picked up. So the book was developed by a Canadian animation studio called Cinegroup. And it is behind the animation of such television shows as, I want to see if you recognize any of these, What's with Andy?
Oh my, already starting off with an absolute banger, Will.
Mega Babies.
And then I'm just, These are hard shifts of opinion, Will. I'm now I was elated when I heard What's with Andy, and now I'm revolted when I have to think about Mega Babies.
Also, the adult animated show Tripping the Rift, which I never saw, but it was the one.
Oh God! We're getting the shows are just getting uglier and uglier.
And surprisingly, the little known live action kids show that I watched way too much of, Galidor.
I don't think I'm familiar with Galidor.
You're fine. It's totally fine.
Galidor, Defenders of the Outer Dimension. What?
Yeah, it was like half CGI, half live action kind of thing. It's like if you've ever seen, oh man, there's another one of those that was
Level 1.
Sure, I'm not super familiar with that one. There's another one
followed by Zix Level 2.
There's another one
I remember this, Will. I had forgotten about this Galidor show. Oh my goodness.
It seems there were a couple of those like half live action, half CGI. Like that seemed to be the time. But I'm stalling because there's another one that I only know.
Well, I'm still reeling from Galidor. I loved this at the time.
A memory?
Yes, I used to really like this. Was it like a Lego property or something? Like
there was some sort of toy tie-in where it's like the kid could turn his arm into like he could basically take the attributes of his friends. And because he had like a robot friend, and he would turn his arm into a robot arm, or like he had a friend who had really strong legs or something.
I think I had the Gamers. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive on Galidor. Yeah, it's on Wikipedia, so I think it's spurned from like a Lego thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to distract myself too much. There's another live action, half CGI action show. It's got a name like Max Steel, but it's not Max Steel. That's different.
I was going to say, I was thinking about Max Steel as well.
And I remember it aired on CBC, but I think it was like an Australian show.
Oh, is this the one with the kids who were like secret agents? I remember that show on CBC.
It might have been. Like they had to go into the computer, and it was like one of those ones where you have to go into like the computer program.
Like the movie Existence.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe not as high stakes as David Cronenberg's Existence.
But, it's Canadian. I didn't want to say the Matrix. Everybody knows the Matrix, but it's not Canadian the way
it was
Existence.
Ace Lightning. It was called Ace Lightning.
Ace. No wonder you forgot the name of that.
No,
this is
really.
Galidor Ace Lightning. We are really, I know we always kind of take a trip down memory lane. By the way, I've never seen this before in my life. This looks insane, Will. We're really taking a trip down memory lane with all these shows this week. I know that's a regular occurrence on For the Kids, but this is a special one. Also, all these shows are from 2002. Galidor, right. 2002, Ace Lightning, 2002.
This was like an afternoon in 2002.
When was Zix Level 1? When did Zix Level 1 come out? And it's funny, this is going to be extra alienating to all our American listeners, because I don't think they had all these shows. These shows are only created because of the way kind of the CRTC and like Canadian grant money works. That's why we have all these like weirdly specific Canadian children's shows, is because they get all this funding.
And Ace Lightning was like I'm reading now, it was a BBC and Alliance Atlantis co-production, so it was like British-Canadian, so Americans probably have never seen this, or very, very little. Anyway, to get us on backtrack a little, so yeah, the Canadian Animation Studio, Cinegroup, did those and other shows, and also it was developed by Sesame Workshop, which at the time was called Children's Television Workshop, which is how I remember what it was called. The show and I believe the book as well were illustrated by a woman named Gretchen Shields, who she's credited especially in, I think it's the opening credits of the show, and so I looked her up. She's now a jewelry designer and artist based in California, but in her bio, she talks about how she illustrated a couple of children's shows and books. So Sagwa was one of them. And so that's kind of where Sagwa's very distinct look comes from, which I think is one of the most memorable things about the show.
Well, I'm looking at kind of the cover of the original children's book, and I didn't expect it's quite a different art style than the show.
Way different.
And I really like the way the children's book looks, kind of as opposed to the way the show looks. I think I love the detail in Sagwa's fur.
It does look very nice, but I will say I do like the way that the show looks. I think it is very evocative, I'd say, of something like Mulan. It also kind of reminds me, I know this is a bit of a different culture, but Okami? I get a bit of Okami vibes from this, because it seems to be trying to evoke the classic like watercolors and the designs of scroll art from that time. Sagwa was a 40-episode cartoon that aired from September 3rd, 2001 to October 5th, 2002. It's actually still airing on PBS stations here and there today. So depending on where you live in America, you may still have Sagwa on reruns. So the idea was it was intended to be a cross-cultural show. It was meant to use, of course, American and Canadian, voice talent and artists and stuff like that, but also to promote the Chinese culture in a way. Sagwa won a Daytime Emmy Award in 2002 for Outstanding Individual in Animation for one of its background artists, Valery Mihalkov. So its art was being recognized in its field pretty prominently.
Now, Will, you talked about how we have Canadian and American voice actors. Is now the time to get into kind of, you said earlier in the show there's no celebrities on the voice cast, no celebrity guest episodes or anything like that.
To the world at large.
But to me and you, Will, this is a stacked voice cast.
So let's talk about the Arthur connection here, because in a way, Sagwa is almost a sister show to Arthur.
Which I never realized. You know what? Now that I'm talking about that original story of waiting, I think what happened was this was the lineup on PBS at the time for me. It would have been. It's either Zoom Arthur Sagwa or Sagwa Arthur Zoom. And I feel like that's why I've watched so much Zoom and Sagwa as a kid, because kind of Arthur was that centerpiece.
I think they always like to put Zoom on a bit later. Like I feel like
okay, so
Zoom
I think it was Sagwa Arthur Zoom.
Like if I had to guess, it would be Arthur 5, Sagwa 5:30, Zoom at 6.
Maybe. Okay.
On weekdays. Yes, that is one of the biggest things that I found in doing this research, especially around the voice cast. But you can also see it in the opening credits. Like the storyboard artist for this first episode is Robert Yap, who worked on a ton of Arthur, especially in the early years. But there is a lot of crossover. So I have a list here of some of the Arthur voice actors that you may have recognized if you watched this episode or if you watched Sagwa at large. For example, Sagwa herself. Well, you know what, Lucas? Which Arthur character sounds like Sagwa?
It's Fern, right?
It is Fern. It's Holly Gautier Frankel, and then there's her brother Donghua.
DW.
Yes, Oliver Granger is DW.
It's a great, interesting crossover on multiple levels. Donghua.
DW. Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that. I did too as I was writing down my notes. I was like, ugh. Their father, who is
Mr. Ratburn.
Arthur Holden is Mr. Ratburn, one of the most recognizable voices in animation for me personally. Every time I hear Arthur Holden in something, I'm like, that's Mr. Ratburn. Like he's often cast as like the distinguished older gentleman, so he's kind of in very similar roles here and there. Now here's one for you. Sagwa's mom in this episode. Did you recognize her voice?
Ooh, I don't know if I remember. Who was Sagwa's mom?
So the voice actor is a woman named Ellen David, who also voices Bitsy Baxter.
Oh, I don't think I put that together.
I wouldn't have either, but once I figured out that was her, you can kind of hear Bitsy. I wrote it down in my notes as she's doing a more refined take on Bitsy Baxter.
I was going to say, Sagwa's mom is a lot more together than Bitsy Baxter.
Yes, big time.
Bitsy Baxter could learn a thing or two from this cat.
And there's also one more, but I wouldn't blame you if you don't know this one. So the Bat Fufu is also a voice, has voiced a couple of different characters that only appeared in one episode each. Or at least so far as we know.
Oh, geez, yeah, no, I'm not sure.
So his name is Rick Jones, and he voiced, among other characters, Pepe, the flea, the circus flea.
I I remember not liking the Pepe episode. The only thing I remember about the Pepe episode is that we didn't like it.
And he was the voice of Jacob Katzenellenbogen.
Okay, Jacob Katzenellenbogen, I'll never forget.
And then there are other voices that we didn't hear in this episode, but you know very well. There is the voice of Mom Reed, Sonia Ball. There is the original voice of Arthur, Michael Yarmish, as one of the Alley Cats. And then there's also Susan Glover, who is a very prolific voice actor, and she was the voice of Mrs. Wood in the earlier episodes of Arthur. So there is so much crossover here, and it's really interesting to think about how busy their schedules must have been 2001 to 2002, going back and forward, especially somebody like Oliver Granger, who was probably still doing the voice or had just recently done the voice of DW. So probably going like back to back on these shows and trying to keep them distinct.
And it actually made me, the DW performance is so, in my mind, iconic. Like that DW's voice of any Arthur character, it's almost like Mr. Rappert's voice where it's so distinct. It was really interesting to hear sort of Oliver Granger in a different context where it's like the DW voice very much is a put on. Like it sounds like DW, but you could tell this is a lot closer to maybe his natural speaking voice in Sagwa.
Yeah, the character of Donghua uses a lot more of his lower register, so it sounds like a young boy sounds. Whereas this did make me realize when when you hear him as DW in Arthur, you think of like, wow, he must be like super young. But part of it is probably the fact that he's using as much of his higher register as he can possibly muster, which is why he probably couldn't be DW for a super long time. Yeah, so Sagwa, a big Arthur connection, and I thought that was really cool to hear all of these voices in kind of different roles and in different contexts. So it was only on TV for a little more than a year, but allegedly, this is an unconfirmed thing from IMDb. It allegedly got great ratings and was very popular. So, again, I didn't really have anything to follow that up with. Or rather, to follow up on that with.
Now Will, I don't know if you know this or not, but was Sagwa popular in China? The Chinese media market is such a important thing these days. Like one of the reasons things like Marvel movies and stuff like that are so successful is because they're so popular in China. Did Sagwa get any airplay in China?
I don't know. I wasn't thinking of that while I was doing my research, and I didn't when I was looking through just kind of Googling it just casually. I'm not sure. I have no concept of if this made it over to China and how popular it was or wasn't.
I feel like it would make sense. Like this might be just me, making assumptions, but I could see if their intention was to make this kind of crossover show with like Canadian and American voices and Chinese history, I could see it working out.
Well, and what's more, I think it's appropriate to mention that so with the cats, like a lot of the animals have these recognizable voices that we know to be like Canadian or American. I looked it up for all of the Chinese characters. They got Asian American voice actors to play them.
Whoa! All the way in 2001. That's way ahead of its time. We have just there's people coming out on the Big Mouth cast or like the Simpsons cast, of course, Apu and all that stuff, where we're just getting to the point now where we're getting white voice actors refusing to play people of color or stepping down from playing people of color because they find it insensitive. So that's really kind of I'm impressed with Sagwa kind of having the tact in all the way back 19 years ago in 2001 to know that it's probably pretty dicey to get anyone else besides a natively Chinese person to play those characters, or a person of Chinese descent.
I agree. I think it's really cool that they were able to do that, and especially considering at the time there would have been no push, there wouldn't have been a big outcry like that, like there would be today. So it's really cool to look back and be like, yeah, the Emperor, his wife, the daughters, the guy who reads the scroll, all Asian American actors. And so it's just like, you know what? It's not that fucking hard to do, you know?
Yeah, for those of you keeping track on the Yvonne of the Yukon problematic scale, so far we have a Chinese author and Chinese and people of Chinese descent voice acting. So far so good for old Sagwa. We'll see if it keeps up.
Yeah, so just a couple of more things about Sagwa herself, or rather about the show, and this kind of leads into the episode, which is episode 1, How Sagwa Got Her Colors. Let's talk a little bit about the theme song, because that is what initially really got our, gets the brain flowing about Sagwa. If you have any nostalgia for the show at all, it comes from the theme song.
And yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, because this is basically something we've said for almost every single one of these PBS shows, especially the ones that I don't really like. But the theme song, I not to say that I don't really like Sagwa, but the theme song, definitely the best part of the show. My word. Hop on yo indeed, Will. Hop on yo indeed. Sagwa,
yes.
You are my best friend when you're bringing heat like this.
This is one of those times where it's like, there's a part of me that wonders, I guess you could say, when I hear the Sagwa theme song, and I'm like, this sounds really cool that they used a lot of instruments native to China. But is that it's hard to word, because I guess in the back of my mind, I'm always cognizant of the fact that a lot of times the representation of Asian cultures in media made in the West is not always super sensitive, and the thing I immediately think of is the use of the gong to represent Asian culture,
right.
And I don't think
you hear a lot of that,
and I don't think that Sagwa falls into that. But I'm wondering.
No, I don't think so either. And you know what? I think to kind of I see kind of where you're going with this line of thinking, and I think that sort of now with the context of everything else that went into the making of Sagwa, I think it's kind of a respectful it's a respectful kind of cultural basically tribute to this feudal Chinese culture, and I think it would be weird and incongruous if, Sagwa started off with hip-hop or something, right? If
totally,
If we had a country western song about Sagwa, and furthermore, this is kind of my personal taste, it also helps that it's really good. That's one thing where all afternoon, I can't help but have the Sagwa theme song stuck in my head. Even more so than some of the other... we were talking about Aaron Carter on the Liberty's Kids theme. We were talking about, the Wishbone theme. Who doesn't love the Wishbone theme? This Sagwa theme, forgive me, it hits different. The Sagwa theme, it's an earworm.
It is. And what's even more interesting is that the lyrics of it played into the episode that we watched. So, I had a question at the beginning of the episode. I was like, what do these lyrics mean? And by the end of the episode, I was like, oh, I have an idea of what they mean. By the way, the theme song composed by a woman named Judith Henderson. She was the music composer on Arthur for about 10 years, from 1996 all the way to 2006. So all the music that, wasn't from a music library that we've heard in Arthur so far is composed, at least in part, by her.
Oh my goodness,
she also
legend
did
status.
She also did the theme songs for shows like The Busy World of Richard Scarry and Mona the Vampire, which also... two huge earworms.
Oh my gosh, yeah. This lady's an icon, man. Are you kidding me? Mona the Vampire? Show us your fangs.
Because on one end we've got every day is a surprise. You'll open up your eyes when you're in Busy Town. And then on the other end you've got Mona the Vampire. It's like, wow.
Oh, yeah, no.
This is a pedigree.
No wonder the Sagwa theme, is so good.
Goes hard in the paint. Absolutely. What's more, I wonder if you'd remember this, because I certainly didn't, but apparently in 2018, the Sagwa theme song went viral a little bit. This was on the Wikipedia page when I was doing research. BuzzFeed, I think, put up one of those, 25 children's cartoon intros you forgot about. And the Sagwa theme song went a little viral 2 years ago. Do you remember hearing anything about this?
I don't
a resurgence?
I don't quite remember this. Like I said, though, I feel like we're due for a Sagwa resurgence, given kind of... I think it's perfect for TikTok. I feel like someone's gonna mine that. We see one of the reasons we started Elwood City Limits, our sister podcast, was because there was kind of this Arthur resurgence with, in 2013 meme culture. Arthur was everywhere. And starting to come back, what with the fist and all of that stuff. And that was one of the reasons we started the Arthur podcast. I feel like Sagwa is an untapped vein. And if they already had a resurgence in 2018, why not bring it back again in 2020?
Maybe, but in watching the episode, it makes me wonder, like, it's killing me. One of the other PBS Kids shows that we talked about was kind of another example of people remember the theme song more than the show. And yes. I feel like this might be another. So let's talk about the episode a little bit. And I say a little bit because I don't know how much I have to say. Like, a lot of my notes are based around the voice actors because the story itself is pretty simple. It's a story of how Sagwa, because Sagwa is Chinese Siamese cat, but she also has like this kind of brown. It comes across as like a brown marking on her paws and her face.
Right, very traditional. Like if you Google Siamese cat, they look like Sagwa.
And of course, when I was a kid, like not really watching the show, I was like, "Yeah, that looks like a cat to me." But apparently, it's a whole story as to how she looks like that. What were the implications that you were thinking of when it comes to the way she looks?
Sagwa gets ink all over her face because she changes the magistrate's laws, right, by accident, okay? Yeah. And then the implications is that the magistrate passes a law that every Siamese cat from then on has to have those markings on their face. So in the world of Sagwa, the only reason Siamese cats look the way they do is either through genetic engineering or dyeing every living Siamese cat because of the insane feudal government of feudal Japan. Alright, that's my big thing about Sagwa, is like, this magistrate is crazy. These laws, there's no checks or balances. There's no Supreme Court in Sagwa, okay? Which I assume this was like, this is why you don't want to have an emperor with absolute power, is because they do stuff like this. But every law that the emperor passes in this episode of Sagwa is so nuts to think about. And I was just thinking about like how awful it would be to live in this society where this emperor's passing these laws, he's getting his cats to write them, and the whole thing, it brought the whole thing into question where I'm like, man, these cats should stop writing these laws because this guy should not be in charge of this country, which I believe is part of the joke. You are not supposed to like the emperor and his terrible wife, but my goodness, are they unlikable.
Yeah, so it is kind of a story within a story because it starts off with Sagwa and her siblings, her brother Donghua and her sister Shigwa.
And let me just say, listen, Sagwa, everybody loves cute kitties. I love a cute little kitten. Okay, we know I'm a Nemo guy when it comes to Arthur.
Yes.
Dogwa, cute cat. Sagwa, of course, cute cat. She's the star of the show. What was the other one's name again?
Shigwa.
Shigwa. My word. Okay, is that a cute little kitten? Shigwa's adorable.
She really is. I mean, I wonder, it would have, again, kind of been a slam dunk when we were talking about in our Wishbone episode. They had to have made plush toys of these cats, right?
I wonder. I gotta look this up. Sagwa plush.
I
don't think I've ever seen one.
While you look that up, the three of them kind of get beset on by these alley cats, which are running characters in the show. Here's another voice actor fact.
Will, these are adorable.
Oh, do they exist?
Oh, yes, and they're very cute.
All right. So the cat that has a speaking role here, his name is Jet Jet. He is voiced by a child actor by the name of Eric Von Detten, who you may recognize as the voice of Sid in Toy Story.
Oh, wow. Always the villain.
So and in Toy Story 3 as well. They brought him back for that, which I always thought was cool. So they make fun of Sagwa for the way she looks. But Sagwa, it kind of ends up rolling off her back a little bit. And when they go back to the palace, this is where we find out that all of the cats do calligraphy and are learning how to do calligraphy by inking up their tails, which is cute. But I also like this kind of the canon of this world is that cats know how to write, which I think the world would be very different today if cats were able to be to have power of attorney and sign documents.
Well, that's what's kind of weird about Sagwa is like, because we're so ignorant about kind of Chinese history. Like, obviously, I know cats weren't actually writing calligraphy, but if you're like a dumb little kid, it's kind of hard to like parse out what's like supposed to be fantastical in Sagwa and what's not, right? Like, I feel like where is the educational elements in Sagwa? Like, are we supposed to be learning about Chinese history, or is it merely the setting and we're supposed to learn like the moral of the story? Because I feel like this would, if I was like 7, or okay, 7 might even be a little bit old, but if I was like 5 and watching Sagwa, I might just think that this is how laws were passed in China.
I do wonder about that as well, because I feel like the role of the cat in Chinese society is much different from the one that plays out in, say, North American society.
But it's true. I like the idea of cats having to be notaries. My friends just bought a house, and you know how much kind of legal work is involved with that, where that's kind of, as a young person, one of the first times you have to find a lawyer and get like a notary to sign all these documents and stuff like that. And it'd be a lot easier if they could just get their 2 cats to do it all.
Absolutely. They're younger cats. They're learning how to essentially write calligraphy and all this sort of thing. And when they go to bed that night, that's when Mother is telling Shigwa the story of how Sagwa got her markings, which has to do with, as you mentioned, the emperor and his wife are really his wife, and I mean this
These
kind of
people are so detestable. Will the emperor? I know that you're not supposed to like them, but my word.
It's really like a lot of it comes down on the wife, which I'm not super fond of just like, oh, the nagging harpy wife,
No,
and then
it's true. It's
her
true.
dumb husband.
Yeah, the emperor is just kind of an idiot. They really like, and the characterization of the wife is a little bit toxic as well, where it's like she's so like, oh, I need these beautiful dresses for my like daughters. Like, it's a weird. Yeah, there's something about it that's just like a little icky.
She's so over the top that she hates singing because it interferes with her beauty naps. I'm like, okay, like, come on here. Yeah, it's just like, okay, this is a dynamic we're going with. By the way, love the Emperor's voice. I found it very soothing to listen to. But yes, he is oafish and eats a lot, and she is nagging and shrewish. And her idea that she gets him to go along with is that she wants to make new rules that are incredibly restrictive in order to increase fines so that they'll get more money, because they had a little bit less money than normal. Another case of people in power just wanting money over the many.
I know. I mean, all I could think about was being a person living in this town and having to like answer to these 2 buffoons, and it's just like they could care less about the people that they're ruling,
because they've already taxed like laughing, joking, smiling, that kind of stuff, and now the one they want to do is to ban singing from day to night and night to day.
This is a footloose ass feudal China, that's for sure.
Who's the Chinese equivalent of Kevin Bacon to break this up? I guess it's Sagwa.
Sagwa
is China's Kevin Bacon.
Well, yeah.
So Sagwa, by accident, kind of falls into an ink pot. And so the idea is, that Sagwa's mom and dad are like the official, I forget what the word is, but notaries, essentially, for these laws. They are the ones who write the calligraphy on the scrolls that become law. And Sagwa stumbles in and accidentally falls into an ink pot and gets it on her paws and her face, and then dribbles out the part of the scroll. And this is cool. They didn't actually use subtitles for the calligraphy. They would have the characters spell out what it means, but they would still represent the calligraphy as is. It made me think of like how in other productions of like, say, something like Yu-Gi-Oh!, or like anime that was brought over to North America in the 90s, it would be like, we have to get rid of every instance of kanji.
Exactly.
Or else the children will be confused. And this was cool of just like, no, children are fine. They know it's, calligraphy writing. They explain in the episode what calligraphy is. So Sagwa,
that's kind of my favorite part of the aesthetic of the show is like, if you look at like the backgrounds and stuff,
yes,
there is this kind of dedication to the architecture and kind of the decorating style. And there is like posters with calligraphy all throughout the backgrounds. That's one of kind of my favorite aspects of the show.
So Sagwa accidentally tramples over the part where it says no singing. And so it seems to be encouraging singing from day to night and night to day. And that makes it all the way to there's a little bit of we got to fix this. Sagwa enlists the help of her friend Fufu, who's a nearsighted bat who has glasses. But eventually it does get read out by the official crier or scroll reader. The reader, I think his title is. And
the official guy, by the way, is my favorite human character on the show.
Oh, yeah? You like him?
Yeah, I like him. He's got his glasses. He's all worried. There's not a lot of human characters to pick from, so...
True enough. I guess mine would be the Emperor, just because I like his voice, but, more than a little problematic fave here. So the people are delighted to see that they are allowed to sing now, and although the Emperor and his wife are against this right away, the people... all gather together and sing the Emperor's praises. Now, this is interesting because it is the same lyrics as the opening theme song. So, essentially, what I took this to mean is that the opening theme song, the lyrics are praising Sagwa, just in place of the Emperor.
I see. And letting us know that she's our best friend.
Yes. Just to hammer that point home. So... there is a scene where all the people go to the steps of the Emperor's palace and they're singing his praises. And this, I'll be honest with you, I found this scene a little touching.
It's true. It's true. When the Emperor is like, they finally like me. It's like, I was like, oh, okay, this is okay.
He's just like, listen to them, they're singing, and he starts to cry, and his wife is like, I haven't seen you cry in 30 years. And he's like, because my people think that I'm kind. They finally said something nice to me. And it's a little bit of like, oh, boo-hoo, everybody. It's like your landlord crying after everybody goes to his front step and praises him. But I found it a little moving, and I'm sure that's in no small part to the performances. I thought that was very nice. So the Emperor is delighted and demands to know. He eventually finds out that it was Sagwa who accidentally enacted this law, and that's where we get the big decree of from this point on there will be joking, singing, laughing all day and all night, and all cats will have their faces and paws look exactly like Sagwa's. And you know what? I didn't think about it before, but how?
Isn't that crazy?
How are we doing that?
It's like, to take another Chinese cultural reference, it's like when Mao asked everybody to kill all the sparrows. And so there was a locust plague because there was no sparrows to eat all the locusts because Mao didn't like sparrows. By decree of the Emperor, are people just running around catching cats and dipping their faces in ink in the Sagwa universe? I mean...
You also mentioned that it could have been genetic engineering, but what was the state of genetic engineering in 1700s China? I don't know. Probably nothing. So
who knows?
I've got to imagine they were just dipping those cats. Just cat dipping.
Cat dipping.
Jeez.
No tripping, just cat dipping. You know what I mean?
It's a lot to think about, and probably a bit more than the TV show intended. Yeah, what I found interesting when the episode finished up, is that it ended with this very sweet moment of all the cats going to sleep and all this kind of stuff. But the outline of the story, it really felt like a Disney movie. This felt like the plot to a Disney movie that was crammed into 20 minutes, because you essentially have you have your cute animal character that has a very distinct look, and they end up influencing a major time in world history.
I bet that's kind of a side effect of my suspicion is that the first episode of Sagwa is basically a complete retelling of the book, the children's book, and the children's book probably has that arc, and then every other episode of Sagwa is kind of just original writing.
I bet you're right. Yes, I'm sure it is. I would actually love to get my hands on Sagwa, the book, just to give it a read. But yeah, that just kind of stuck out to me a lot. And it seems like a complete story in itself, but then we have a lot more episodes after that. But that's the most we're going to be looking at Sagwa for right now. So how did this strike you, Lucas? Did this bring back any memories, or did it what did it do? What did it do for you, if anything, watching it as an adult?
So here's something that I might have not explained properly when I was talking about what Sagwa meant to me is, as much as I'd seen Sagwa at the time because it was bookending one of the shows I did want to watch, I do remember as a kid kind of detesting Sagwa, as it was always kind of a show I found boring and I didn't really like that much.
Okay.
And looking back at it as an adult, it's interesting because I could totally see why little kid me was not interested in it. It's funny now because now I almost appreciate it a little bit more because though I find the plot lines and the characters a little bit boring, I do really like looking at the art of Sagwa. I like looking at the kind of this, for lack of a better term, the backgrounds, and I think all the kind of the style of the cats is all pretty cool. I find the humans a little bit ugly, but that's kind of fun. They're like ugly in a fun way.
They're very distinct. They're very distinct looking.
There's kind of something for me to appreciate now as an adult, whereas as a kid I was just kind of bored by Sagwa, and unfortunately, I will have to say, in terms of plot-wise, I'm still a little bit bored by Sagwa. Not the most. It's a kind of a weird contrast because the stakes could not be higher. One wrong swipe of their tail, and I don't know what kind of legislation these cats are passing, right? Like, what if the emperor says something and they miswrite it, and it's just like people are getting executed in the streets? This is sweeping. There's no, like I said before, zero checks and balances in this political system that Sagwa finds herself in. That being said, fairly kind of just like really slow paced. Like super slow paced, even for the time where 20 years ago cartoons were way more slow paced than they are now. I just find it like a little bit slow, just like the volume is just turned down a little too much on everything, to be kind of my type of animated program. That being said, I do appreciate it more as an adult, just to see kind of the art style and the environments. Like, I'm looking at a shot right now of the town, and everybody's like standing in the town square, and the level of detail put into all that stuff is fun. But just sitting down and watching it, a tad boring.
I tend to agree with you. I would be, I guess, a little bit more generous. To me, it reads like a typical, it kind of reminds me of Redwall a little bit, because except where Redwall is concerned, it had a bit more forward momentum as a story. There was like an overarching story, whereas Sagwa, to my knowledge, I think is pretty episodic. So it seems like a type of typical kids television show that would benefit from a bit more forward momentum, because it's like a kids television show trapped in the body of a public television cartoon, where it's like everything's a little bit leisurely. There's nothing really, you can just look at the cute cats. You can look at the very, very good animation, the illustrations, I should say. I mean, the animation's fine too, but the illustrations, I think, are really strong and very evocative, and I really like the way everything looks, the use of colors and all that sort of thing. But there's not like, it's not like, oh man, I need to watch the next episode. So I don't think that it didn't hook me when I would have been 11 when this came on. So yeah, I was a bit too old for it, so I can't speak to being the right age for it. And watching it as adults, like, this is totally fine. Like, it's absolutely inoffensive, but it's also just not driving me to do very much or to watch the rest of it. I'm not mad at it at all. What I wanted to say earlier when you were talking about this, it's also not, I wouldn't call this an educational show either. Like, it is within a period of time that many kids, especially like white kids growing up, or non-Asian kids growing up in America and Canada, wouldn't know very much about China. And I feel like, yes, there is a point where we learn what calligraphy is, and we kind of get an idea of what this period of time looked like. But it also didn't feel like I was, they weren't stopping the action to go like, this word means this symbol means this. Like, it wasn't straight up educational. So it was kind of neither one nor the other, and kind of being in the middle, being more in the middle, it kind of rolls off you a little bit easier because neither part sticks to you, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I feel like it needed to either be more of a straight up educational show, or it needed to be more of like, okay, we got to hit this moral home. But at least in this first episode, we don't really get either.
But I would think that there is definitely room in children's television today for something like Sagwa to take more of an educational slant, because I think it is something important, especially for Asian American and Asian Canadian kids to have their culture represented alongside the likes of Arthur and other shows that are kind of geared towards different segments of the audience. So I think it would be cool to have kids learn about different parts of the world, and I'd like that for other countries too. I think we have this capacity now, and I'd like to see, I don't know if it would be another Sagwa show or just another show, set at a similar time or with a similar idea. But I think that there is some good to Sagwa. It's just not the most interesting show in the world to talk about. Like, my notes for the episode were not very long at all. And neither is this episode. But I'm not mad at it, and it's certainly pleasant to look at, and of course pleasant to my ears that are used to a lot of the Arthur voice actors. It was very nice to hear them again. Well, yes, education is a big theme of For the Kids as we go through a lot of these different shows. It's all talking about how kids learn. And Lucas, we're gonna next time, since it's my pick, we're gonna be steering into something more educational. Now, I will also say that we have, I have done an ECL episode on this show specifically. If that gives you a little hint.
I'm trying to think. I'm not sure, Will.
It's a little bit of a loophole. This is one of the only times that we've done another show that isn't Arthur on ECL.
Oh my gosh.
It was when we, and myself, and I believe it was either Susan or Anna was with me, and we did an episode about Arthur's eyes because it was a book. And you can take a look within that book and find a reading rainbow.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Now next one is going to be, there's going to be a lot for me to research. There's going to be a lot to talk about in terms of where Reading Rainbow is today, how much it's changed over the years, and the impact it's had on people our age, people younger than us, and people older than us. Because I think, without, haven't done the research on it yet, but I would venture to say Reading Rainbow is maybe one of the most memeable and memed PBS shows there's ever been.
Well, color me excited, Will. I'm strapping on my Geordie LaForge visor because I'm ready to read some GD books.
Set phasers to love me, because next time on For the Kids, it's going to be talking about Reading Rainbow. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. It's been fun talking about Sagwa and getting to go back and kind of find out where I stand on that. And I hope that you found where you stand as well. Do you have a recommendation for a Reading Rainbow episode that we should look at? That's not the episode about Arthur, because we actually already did an episode about that, so you can listen to that one. If you do, then please feel free to leave a comment either here on Patreon or let us know in the Discord. And we would be happy to take into consideration any Reading Rainbow episodes that you have stuck in your head, as well as any thoughts that you may have with your experience with Reading Rainbow. This is going to be a trip. I remember enough and yet still very little about the typical exercise of watching a Reading Rainbow episode.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been they brought it back. Well, listen, we'll save that conversation for next episode of For the Kids.
That's right. It's tempting to get into it, but we're going to save it, and we hope that you join us there for the Kids, PBS Kids podcast, because that was PBS.